Jake Peterson stood in the center of the huge room. The walls were made of some kind of metal that glowed with a soft blue light. Around him, creatures from dozens of different worlds sat in tall chairs that looked down at him. Some had scales. Others had fur. A few looked like they were made of crystal. None of them looked friendly. The room was called the Council Chamber. It was on a space station called Nexus Prime, far from Earth. Jake had traveled here for 3 months just to get to this moment. He was the only human in the room. "So," said a voice that sounded like breaking glass, "this is what humans look like." Jake looked up at the speaker. It was Kexthara, the leader of the Zephyrian people. She looked like a walking diamond with arms and legs. Her face had no skin, just clear crystal that showed light moving inside her head. "Yes," Jake said. "I am Commander Jake Peterson. I speak for all humans on Earth." Several of the aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Jake could not tell. He had studied their languages for years, but their emotions were still hard to read. "Earth," said another voice. This one belonged to a creature that looked like a giant spider with too many eyes. The little blue planet with the angry monkeys. More sounds of what Jake thought was laughter filled the room. He kept his face calm. He had been a Marine before becoming a diplomat. He knew how to stay cool under pressure. "We are here to discuss Earth's request," Kexthara said. "You want to join our council. You want to be treated as equals." "That is correct," Jake said. "Humans have been traveling in space for over 50 years now. We have colonies on 3 worlds. We have trade agreements with the Altarians and the Vegan Republic. We follow all galactic laws." "Laws?" laughed the spider creature. "You have been in space for 50 years. We have been traveling between stars for 50,000 years. You are babies playing with toys." Jake felt his anger rise, but pushed it down. Every species started somewhere. The Zephyrians were once young too. Kexthara's crystal face seemed to glow brighter. "We were never as primitive as you. When we first left our world, we already had technology you cannot even understand. Your ships are held together with metal and hope." "Our ships work," Jake said simply. "Barely," said a new voice. Jake turned to see a creature that looked like a walking tree with golden bark. "Your fastest ships take months to travel between stars. Our ships make the same journey in days." "Speed is not everything," Jake replied. "We have other strengths." "Like what?" asked the spider creature. "Your weapons are simple. Your technology is basic. Your people fight each other over pieces of dirt. What could you possibly offer to this council?" Jake had prepared for this question. We offer a new way of thinking. We solve problems differently. We do not give up easily. We adapt quickly to new situations. The room fell quiet for a moment. Then Kexthara spoke again. "You adapt," she said. "Like insects adapt. Like bacteria adapt. This is not impressive." "Perhaps not to you," Jake said. "But adaptation has served you as well. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters. We have gone from living in caves to traveling to other worlds in just a few thousand years." "And you think this makes you special?" asked the tree creature. "Every species has a survival story. Most are more impressive than yours." Jake looked around the room. He could see that none of these beings respected humans. To them, his people were just another primitive species that had barely learned to leave their home world. "I think," Jake said slowly, "that you are making a mistake." The room became very quiet. Several aliens leaned forward in their chairs. "A mistake?" Kexthara's voice was sharp. "Explain." "Throughout human history, our greatest victories have come when others underestimated us. When they thought we were too weak, too stupid, or too primitive to matter. They were always wrong. Is that a threat?" asked the spider creature. No, Jake said. It is a warning. And a piece of advice. Judge us by what we do, not by what we look like or how long we have been in space. Kexthara made a sound like wind. Chimes in a storm. Your species has been evaluated. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your military is laughable. Your ships are slow and fragile. You have nothing we want or need. You have not even given us a chance to prove ourselves. Jake said, We do not need to, said the tree creature. We have scanned your worlds. We have studied your history. We know exactly what humans are capable of. It is not much. Jake felt his heart sink. He had hoped that reason would work, that showing respect and patience would earn him a fair hearing. But these beings had already made up their minds. Very well, Jake said. I request that this council vote Arth's membership. Gladly, said Kexthara. All in favor of granting humans full membership in the Galactic Council? Not a single hand, claw, or tentacle was raised. All opposed? Every alien in the room raised their appendages. The vote was unanimous. The request is denied, Kexthara announced. Furthermore, humans are restricted to their own solar system. You may not expand beyond the worlds you currently occupy without permission from this council. Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach. You cannot do this. We have rights under galactic law. Rights are earned, said the spider creature. You have not earned them. This is wrong, Jake said. You judge us without knowing us. You restrict us without cause. History will remember this moment. History, laughed Kexthara, is written by the powerful, and you are not powerful. Two large creatures that looked like walking tanks came forward. They were security guards. Commander Peterson, one of them said in a deep voice, You are asked to leave. Jake looked around the room one more time. He saw smugness, contempt, and dismissal in every face. These beings thought they knew everything about humans. They thought they had measured his species and found them wanting. I will leave, Jake said, but I will remember this day, and so will my people. As the guards escorted him out, Jake heard the sounds of alien laughter following him down the corridor. They thought this was funny. They thought humans were a joke. Jake Peterson smiled grimly as he walked toward his ship. These aliens were about to learn something important about humans. When you push them into a corner, when you tell them they are not good enough, when you laugh at their dreams, they do not give up. They get angry. And angry humans are dangerous humans. The Council had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They just did not know it yet. 3 months had passed since Jake Peterson returned to Earth with the bad news. The Galactic Council had said no. Humans were not welcome. They were restricted to their own solar system, like children who could not be trusted to play with the older kids. Admiral Lisa Brooks sat in her office on Luna Station, looking at reports from across human space. The news was not good. Several alien species had started treating humans differently since the Council's decision. Trade deals were being canceled. Shipping routes were being closed. It was like the whole galaxy had decided that humans did not matter. Lisa was a tall woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. She had been in the military for 20 years and had worked her way up from a simple pilot to the head of Earth's space fleet. She did not like what she was seeing. Ma'am, said Captain Alex Turner as he entered her office. Alex was young for a ship captain, only 32 years old, but he was one of the best officers in the fleet. We have a problem. Another one? Lisa asked. What now? The Krillians have moved a battle fleet to the edge of our space. They are saying it is just exercises, but ... Alex put a data pad on her desk. They are positioned to attack our colony on Kepler 442b. Lisa picked up the pad and studied the information. The Krillians were a warrior race that looked like walking lizards with too many teeth. They had been expanding their territory for years, taking over smaller worlds and enslaving the people who lived there. "How many ships?" she asked. 50. Warships, all big ones. They could destroy our colony in an hour. Lisa felt her stomach tighten. Kepler 442b was home to 3,000 human colonists. They were farmers, scientists, and their families. They had no military protection except for a few security guards. "Send a message to the Krillian commander," she said. "Tell them they are too close to our space. Ask them to move their fleet." "Already did," Alex said. "They told us to mind our own business. They said they can put their ships anywhere they want." Lisa stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see Earth floating in the black of space. It looked so peaceful from here, but she knew that peace was about to be broken. "Get me a line to the Galactic Council," she said. "Maybe they can talk to the Krillians." "Ma'am," Alex said quietly, "I already tried that too. They said this is not their problem. They said the Krillians have every right to conduct exercises in neutral space." Lisa turned back to Alex. "Neutral space? That is 5 light hours from our colony." "I know, ma'am. But the Council does not care. They think we are just complaining about nothing." Lisa sat back down and put her head in her hands. This was exactly what she had been afraid of. The galaxy saw humans as weak. They thought they could push humans around and there would be no consequences. "Ma'am," Alex said, "there is something else. Dr. Sam Morgan wants to talk to you. He says it is urgent." Dr. Sam Morgan was Earth's chief scientist. He was a thin man with messy brown hair and thick glasses. He was also the smartest person Lisa had ever met. "Send him in," she said. A few minutes later, Dr. Morgan entered the office. He looked excited and worried at the same time. "Admiral," he said, "I have been working on some new ideas. Things that might help us if trouble starts." "What kind of ideas?" Lisa asked. "Well," Sam said, sitting down, "I have been thinking about our technology problem. The aliens are right. Our ships are slower and weaker than theirs. But that does not mean we cannot fight them." "Go on," Lisa said. "Humans have always been good at fighting larger, stronger enemies. We use our brains instead of our muscles. We use tricks and tools. We adapt." Alex leaned forward. "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting we stop trying to build ships like the aliens build ships. Instead, we build ships that work the way humans work. Fast, clever, and hard to predict." Lisa was interested now. "Show me." Sam pulled out his own datapad and put it on the desk. The screen showed designs for ships that looked nothing like the big, heavy cruisers that humans currently used. "These are smaller," Sam said. "Much smaller. But they are also much faster, and they can work together like a pack of wolves." "How fast?" Alex asked. "Fast enough to run circles around Krillian battlecruisers. And they have another advantage. They are cheap. We can build 10 of these for the cost of one traditional cruiser." Lisa studied the designs. The ships looked strange, almost alien. Themselves. They were sleek and curved, with unusual weapon placements. "What about armor?" she asked. "They do not need much armor," Sam said. "They rely on speed and stealth. The idea is not to get hit at all." "That sounds risky," Alex said. "Everything is risky now," Sam replied. "But I think this could work. Humans have always been good at guerrilla warfare. These ships would let us fight that way in space." Lisa was about to respond when her communication system beeped. An urgent message was coming in. "Admiral Brooks," said a voice filled with static. "This is Colony Control on Kepler 442b. We are under attack. The Krillians have opened fire. They are bombing our cities." Lisa jumped to her feet. "How many ships?" "All of them." 50 ships. They just started shooting without warning. We have no defenses. We need help, Lisa's mind raced. It would take her fastest ships 2 days to reach Kepler 442b. By then, the colony would be gone. Get me a line to the Krillian commander, she ordered. A few minutes later, a large lizard face appeared on her screen. The creature had yellow eyes and sharp teeth. It looked pleased with itself. I am Admiral Lisa Brooks of the Earth Fleet, she said. You are attacking innocent civilians. Stop immediately. The Krillian commander laughed. I am General Vextar of the Krillian Empire. These humans are on a world we want. They can leave or die. It does not matter to us. Those people have lived there for 10 years, Lisa said. They have done nothing to you. They exist, Vextar said. That is enough. Your species is weak. Your council has abandoned you. No one will help you. We take what we want. The screen went black. Lisa stood in silence for a moment. Then she turned to Alex and Sam. How long would it take to build those new ships? She asked. 6 months, Sam said. Maybe less if we work around the clock. We do not have 6 months, Lisa said. We have maybe 6 hours before that colony is completely destroyed. There is nothing we can do, Alex said quietly. Our ships are too far away and too slow. Lisa walked back to the window. She watched Earth turn slowly in space. Somewhere out there, 3,000 humans were about to die, and the galaxy would do nothing to stop it. Send a message to all Earth ships, she said. Tell them to return to home base immediately. All of them. Ma'am? Alex asked. We tried to do things the peaceful way, Lisa said. We asked for respect. We followed their rules. We begged for a seat at their table. She turned back to them. They said no. They said we were too weak to matter. They said we were not worthy of their attention. What are you planning? Sam asked. Lisa looked at both men. Her voice was cold and hard. I am planning to show them what happens when you back humans into a corner. I am planning to show them that weak does not mean helpless. And I am planning to make them regret every word they said about our species. She walked to her desk and pressed a button. Get me President John Hayes on the line. Tell him we need to talk about those special projects we have been keeping secret. Alex and Sam looked at each other. They had never heard Lisa talk like this before. Admiral, Alex said carefully, what special projects? Lisa smiled, but it was not a happy smile. The ones the Council does not know about. The ones we have been building in case this day came. The ones that are going to change everything. Outside the window, Earth continued to turn. But something had changed. The humans were no longer asking for permission. They were getting ready for war. Dr. Ellen Price floated in zero gravity inside the asteroid mining station. Around her, hundreds of human workers moved like busy ants, building something that had never been built before. The asteroid had been hollowed out and turned into a secret shipyard, hidden deep in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. How many ships can we build here? Asked Commander Rick Stone as he floated up beside her. Ellen checked her tablet. 50 of the new design. Maybe 60 if we push hard. But they will not be like anything the galaxy has seen before. Rick was the head of Earth's new spy network. He was a quiet man who had spent years learning how to gather information without being seen. His people had been busy for the past 6 months, watching and listening to alien communications. The Krillians think we are building nothing, he said. They believe we are still crying about our lost colony. They have no idea what we are really doing. Ellen nodded. The attack on Kepler 442b had been terrible. All 3,000 colonists were gone. The Galactic Council had called it a regrettable incident and done nothing. But their deaths had not been for nothing. They had given humanity something precious, absolute certainty that they were alone in the galaxy. Show me the latest design, Rick said. Ellen pulled up a holographic display. The ship that appeared looked nothing like the big, slow cruisers that most species used. It was small, fast, and covered in strange angles that seemed to bend light. Around them, we call it the Phantom class, Ellen said. It uses technology we learned from studying crashed alien ships. But we made it better. How? Alien ships are designed to be seen. They want to look powerful and scary. Our ships are designed to be invisible. They can hide from almost any sensor. Rick studied the design. What about weapons? That is where it gets interesting. Instead of big energy cannons, we use small, smart missiles. Each ship carries 100 of them. They can think for themselves and work together. Work together how? Ellen smiled. Watch this simulation. The hologram changed to show a battle. A large alien warship was moving through space, surrounded by smaller escort vessels. Suddenly, dozens of tiny missiles appeared from nowhere. They moved like a school of fish, coordinating their attacks. The missiles talk to each other, Ellen explained. They plan their attack in real time. Some hit the shields, others wait for the shields to fail. Then they all strike at once. Rick watched as the simulation showed the alien ship being destroyed in seconds. This is impressive. But what if they have dozens of ships? That is the beauty of it, Ellen said. Our ships work the same way. They are a pack. Each ship has a role. Some attack, some defend, some provide support. They adapt to whatever the enemy does. Like wolves hunting, Rick said. Exactly. And like wolves, they are much more dangerous together than apart. A new voice joined their conversation. The question is, will it work against real enemies? They turned to see Captain Maria Santos floating toward them. Maria was small and fast, with dark hair and quick eyes. She led the human scouts who had been secretly mapping alien territory for months. Maria, Ellen said, how did your last mission go? Better than expected, Maria said. The Krillians have moved most of their fleet to the edge of human space. They think we are planning something stupid, like a direct attack on their home world. Are we not? Rick asked. Maria grinned. That is what they think. But Admiral Brooks has a different plan. Instead of attacking their strongest points, we are going to hit their weakest ones. Explain, Ellen said. Maria pulled out her own tablet. The Krillian Empire controls 27 worlds. But most of their military is concentrated around 5 major bases. The other 22 worlds have almost no protection. So we attack the undefended worlds, Rick asked. We liberate them, Maria corrected. Most of those worlds do not want to be part of the Krillian Empire. They were conquered and enslaved. If we free them, they might join us. Ellen thought about this. That is risky. What if they do not trust us? They will, Maria said. I have been talking to resistance groups on several worlds. They hate the Krillians. They would rather fight with us than serve them. Rick looked worried. But we will be spread thin. If the Krillians concentrate their forces, they could defeat us in detail. That is where our new ships come in, Maria said. They are fast enough to hit multiple targets and escape before the enemy can respond. We can be in 10 places at once. Ellen pulled up another display. We have also been working on something else. Secret bases. What kind of bases? Rick asked. Hidden ones. We have been building supply depots inside asteroids, on empty moons, even inside gas giant atmospheres. Places where alien sensors cannot find them. How many? Maria asked. 50 so far. All fully stocked with fuel, weapons, and repair equipment. Our ships can operate for months without returning to Earth. Rick was impressed. This is a completely different kind of war than the aliens expect. That is the idea, Ellen said. They think war is about big fleets meeting in open space and shooting at each other until one side wins. We are going to show them a different way. Guerrilla warfare. Maria said. Hit and run. Strike fast, disappear, strike again somewhere else. Will it work? Rick asked. Ellen looked at the holographic display showing their new ships. I think so. But there is only one way to find out. A communication alert beeped. Admiral Brooks. Face appeared on the screen. Ellen, Rick, Maria, she said. Report to the command center immediately. We have received intelligence that changes everything. The three of them quickly made their way to the command center at the heart of the asteroid. Admiral Brooks was waiting for them, along with Dr. Sam Morgan and several other senior officers. What is the situation? Ellen asked. Admiral Brooks looked grim. The Krillians are planning something big. Our spies have learned that they are gathering their entire fleet for a massive attack on Earth. When? Rick asked. 3 weeks. They want to end this quickly before we can build up our defenses. Maria whistled. How many ships? 200. Every warship they have. They are calling it the final solution. Ellen felt her heart sink. Our new ships are not ready. We only have 30 completed, and the crews are still training. I know, Admiral Brooks said, but we have no choice. We fight with what we have, or we surrender. Dr. Sam Morgan spoke up. There might be another option. Everyone turned to look. At him. The Krillians are expecting us to defend Earth, he said. They are planning for a big battle in our home system. But what if we do not give them that battle? What do you mean? Admiral Brooks asked. What if we strike first? What if we hit them while they are still gathering their forces? Rick shook his head. They are too strong. Even divided, they have more ships than we do? More ships, yes, Sam said, but not necessarily better ships. And they do not know what our new ships can do. Ellen saw where he was going. A surprise attack. Hit them before they are ready. More than that, Sam said. A coordinated strike on multiple targets. Force them to spread their forces thin. Admiral Brooks considered this. It is risky. If we fail, Earth will be defenseless. If we do nothing, Earth will be destroyed anyway, Maria pointed out. She is right, Ellen said. At least this way, we have a chance. Admiral Brooks was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Very well. We go with the surprise attack. Ellen, I need those 30 ships ready for combat in 1 week. They will be ready, Ellen said. Rick, I need detailed intelligence on Krillian fleet positions and movements. You will have it, Rick said. Maria, I need your best pilots to lead the strike teams. They are already picked, Maria said. Admiral Brooks looked around the room. In 1 week, we will show the galaxy what humans are really capable of. We will show them that underestimating us was the biggest mistake they ever made. Ellen felt a mixture of fear and excitement. Everything they had worked for came down to this moment. Soon, the galaxy would learn that humans were not the weak, primitive species they thought they were. They were about to become something much more dangerous. They were about to become the hunters. Captain Alex Turner sat in the command chair of the UES Defiance, one of the new Phantom-class ships. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. Through the main screen, he could see the Krillian fleet gathering near the edge of the solar system. Status report, he said softly. 53 enemy ships confirmed, said Lieutenant Kate Johnson from the tactical station. They are forming up for their attack run on Earth. Alex nodded. The Krillians had come exactly as expected. They thought they were about to destroy humanity in one quick battle. They had no idea that 30 human ships were hidden in the asteroid belt, waiting to spring their trap. Communications, Alex said. Any word from the other strike teams? All teams report ready, said the communications officer. Admiral Brooks is waiting for your signal. Alex looked at the time display. In exactly 3 minutes, the Krillian commander would receive a message from Earth. It would be a surrender offer, asking for mercy and promising to give up all human colonies. The Krillians would laugh and reject it. What they did not know was that the message was actually the signal to begin the attack. 2 minutes, Kate announced. Alex felt his heart beating faster. He had trained for this moment for months, but he had never been in a real battle before. None of them had. Humans had not fought a space war since the early days of colonization. "Captain," said the sensor officer, "I am picking up something strange. There are ships moving behind the Krillian fleet." Alex frowned. "What kind of ships?" "I am not sure. They are not showing up clearly on sensors. They might be more Krillians, or ... or what? Or they might be council ships, coming to watch the show." Alex felt a chill. If the Galactic Council was here to watch humanity's destruction, it would make their victory even more satisfying. 1 minute, Kate said. Alex opened a channel to all ships. "This is Captain Turner. In 1 minute, we show the galaxy what humans are really made of. Remember your training. Trust your ships. Trust each other. And remember what they did to our people on Kepler 442b. 30 seconds, Kate said. Alex watched the timer count down. At exactly 0, a message would be sent from Earth to the Krillian fleet. The Krillians would reject it with laughter, and then they would learn what real humans could do. 10 seconds, Kate said. Alex gripped the arms of his chair. "All ships, prepare for attack pattern Alpha. 5.3.3.1. Mark." The asteroid belt exploded into action. 30 human ships that had been invisible suddenly became visible as they powered up their engines and weapons. They moved like a pack of wolves, fast and coordinated. "Go!" Alex shouted. The HFY shot forward, followed by the other ships in his squadron. They were heading straight for the Krillian fleet at incredible speed. The enemy ships were still in formation, not expecting any attack. "Missile lock on lead ship," Kate announced. "Fire." Alex ordered. Hundreds of small missiles launched from the human ships. They moved like a swarm of angry bees, weaving and dodging as they approached their targets. The Krillian ships began to turn, trying to bring their weapons to bear, but they were too slow. The missiles hit the Krillian flagship just as its shields were powering up. The explosions lit up space like a second sun. When the light faded, the massive ship was breaking apart. "Direct hit," Kate shouted. "The flagship is down." But Alex was already looking at the next target. Squadron 2 hit the carrier on the left flank. Squadron 3, take out those destroyers. The human ships moved like dancers, each one knowing exactly where the others were going. They had practiced this attack 1,000 times in simulation, but seeing it work in real combat was amazing. "Captain," said the communications officer, "we are getting signals from the other strike teams. They have begun their attacks on Krillian supply bases." Alex smiled. While the main Krillian fleet was here trying to attack Earth, human ships were hitting their undefended worlds. The Krillians were about to lose everything they had conquered. "Sir," Kate said, "the enemy is trying to form a battle line. They are bringing their heavy weapons to bear." "Let them," Alex said. "We are not going to fight them the way they expect." He opened a channel to all ships. "Execute pattern Beta. Scatter and regroup." The human ships suddenly spread out in all directions, moving too fast for the Krillian gunners to track. They would come in from different angles, fire their missiles, and disappear again before the enemy could respond. "This is incredible," Kate said as she watched the battle unfold. "They cannot hit us. We are too fast." "That is the idea," Alex sighed. We are not trying to prove we are stronger. We are trying to prove we are smarter. The battle continued for 2 hours. The human ships moved like ghosts, appearing from nowhere to strike, and then vanishing again. The Krillian fleet, built for big battles with heavy weapons, could not adapt to this new kind of warfare. "Captain," the sensor officer said, "I am counting 17 enemy ships destroyed. 12 more are heavily damaged." Alex looked at his own casualties. "How many ships have we lost?" "None, sir. 3 ships have minor damage, but all crews are safe." Alex could hardly believe it. They were winning. Actually winning against a force that outnumbered them almost 2 to 1. "Sir," the communications officer said, "Admiral Brooks is asking for a status report." Alex opened a channel to the Admiral. "This is Captain Turner. We have destroyed 17 enemy ships and damaged 12 more. Our casualties are minimal." "Excellent work, Alex. How is the enemy morale?" Alex looked at his screen. The Krillian ships were no longer in formation. They were scattered across space, some trying to retreat, others firing wildly at shadows. "They are confused and scared," he said. "They do not know how to fight us." "Good. It is time for the final phase. Draw them toward Earth. Make them think they still have a chance. Understood?" Alex closed the channel and turned to his crew. "All ships fall back toward Earth. Make it look like we are running low on missiles." The human ships began to retreat, moving just fast enough to stay ahead of the Krillian pursuit. The enemy commander, desperate to salvage something from the battle, ordered his remaining ships to follow Dot. What the Krillians did not know was that Earth had its own surprises waiting for them. Dot, as the battle moved into the inner solar system, massive defense platforms that had been hidden on the dark side of the moon suddenly powered up. They had been built in secret over the past year, using technology that combined human engineering with alien science. "Sir," Kate said, "the moon. Platforms are online. They are targeting the Krillian fleet." Alex watched as beams of energy reached out from the moon to strike the enemy ships. These were not the quick mobile weapons of the Phantom ships. These were massive station-killing weapons that could punch through any armor. "Communications," Alex said, "open a channel to the Krillian commander." A few moments later, the face of General Vexstar appeared on the screen. The proud lizard warrior looked shocked and confused. His fleet was being destroyed around him. "I am Captain Alex Turner of the Earth Defense Force," Alex said. "I am offering you one chance to surrender." Vexstar hissed in anger. "Humans do not defeat Krillians. This is impossible." "Your fleet is destroyed," Alex said calmly. "Your supply bases are under attack. Your empire is falling apart. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated with respect." "Never," Vexstar roared. "We will fight to the last ship." Alex nodded sadly. "I was hoping you would say that." He closed the channel and opened one to Admiral Brooks. "Admiral, the Krillian commander refuses to surrender." "Then finish it," she said. Alex turned to Kate. "All ships, final attack pattern. Take out the remaining ships." The human fleet moved in for the kill. The Krillians fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. Within an hour, the battle was over. "Sir," the communications officer said, "we are getting a transmission from the Galactic Council ship." Alex had forgotten about the Council. "Observers. Put them on screen." The face that appeared was not one he recognized. It was a creature that looked like a walking octopus with silver skin. "This is Ambassador Zelenok of the Galactic Council," the creature said. "We have observed your battle with great interest." "And?" Alex asked. "We wish to discuss terms," the ambassador said. "It appears we may have underestimated your species." Alex almost laughed. "Underestimated? You told us we were not worthy to sit at your table. You said we were primitive monkeys playing with toys. The ambassador's tentacles writhed nervously. Perhaps we were too hasty in our judgment. Perhaps, Alex said. But right now, I have a battle to finish. If the Council wants to talk, they can contact Admiral Brooks on Earth. He cut the transmission and turned back to his crew. Through the main screen, he could see the wreckage of the Krillian fleet floating in space. Ships that had seemed so powerful and frightening just hours ago were now twisted metal and fading energy signatures. Captain, Kate said, we are receiving reports from the other strike teams. All objectives have been completed. Krillian supply bases on 12 worlds have been destroyed or captured. Any word on the liberated worlds? Alex asked. Yes, sir. 7 worlds have declared independence from the Krillian Empire. Their leaders want to meet with human representatives. Alex nodded. It was better than they had hoped. Not only had they defeated the Krillian fleet, but they had also freed several enslaved worlds. The balance of power in this part of the galaxy had just shifted dramatically. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Sol. Admiral Lisa Brooks stood in what used to be the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime. The room looked very different now. The tall chairs that had once looked down on human representatives were gone. In their place were simple tables arranged in a circle, where representatives from dozens of worlds could meet as equals. The new Federation Council will come to order, said Jake Peterson from the center of the circle. He was no longer just a human diplomat. He had been elected as the first president of the new Galactic Federation by representatives from 47 worlds. Lisa watched from the observation deck as delegates took their seats. Many of them were species she had never seen before. They were representatives from worlds that had been enslaved by the Krillians, the Zephyrians, and other aggressive empires. For the first time in centuries, they had a voice in galactic affairs. Our first order of business, Jake said, is the petition from the Krillian remnant for membership in the Federation. A murmur went through the chamber. The mighty Krillian Empire no longer existed. After their defeat at Sol, their subject worlds had rebelled. Their military had collapsed. Now the survivors were asking to join the very Federation they had tried to destroy. General Vexstar stood up slowly. The proud lizard warrior looked very different from the creature who had attacked human colonies. His scales were dull, his posture defeated. He had spent 6 months in human custody, and the experience had changed him. Honored delegates, he said in a voice that shook slightly, I stand before you not as a conqueror, but as a petitioner. My people have learned the cost of aggression. We have seen what happens when might makes right. We ask for a chance to prove that we can be better. Jake looked around the chamber. Are there any questions for General Vexstar? Ambassador Sarah Kim stood up. She had replaced Jake as Earth's primary representative when he became Federation president. She was younger than Jake, but had the same steady manner that made other species trust her. General, she said, 6 months ago you destroyed a human colony. 3,000 innocent people died. Why should we trust you now? Vexstar's head hung low. We should not trust words alone. We offer actions. My people will pay reparations to the families of those who died. We will help rebuild what we destroyed. And we will place our remaining military under Federation command. Another delegate stood up. This one was from Altair, one of the first species to ally with humanity. What guarantee do we have that the Krillians will not return to their old ways when they grow strong again? Because, said a new voice, they will not be alone. Everyone turned to see Captain Alex Turner entering the chamber. He now wore the uniform of the Federation Defense Force, a military organization that included ships and crews from a dozen different worlds. Captain Turner, Jake said, please explain. Alex walked to the center of the circle. The old galaxy was built on fear. The strong dominated the weak because they could. But we are building something different. A galaxy where strength comes from cooperation, not conquest. He looked directly at General Vextar. The Krillians were warriors. They lived for battle. But what happens to warriors when there are no more wars to fight? They become guardians, Vextar said quietly. They protect instead of destroy. Exactly, Alex said. The Federation needs protectors. There are still aggressive empires out there. Pirates and slavers who prey on peaceful worlds. We need experienced warriors to help us stop them. Lisa watched the debate with interest. This was so different from the old council, where a few powerful species made all the decisions. Here, everyone had a voice. Even former enemies could become allies if they proved they were sincere. I call for a vote, Jake said. All in favor of accepting the Krillian petition for Federation membership? Hands, claws, and tentacles rose around the chamber. Lisa counted them carefully. It was close, but the vote passed. The Krillian worlds are hereby accepted as provisional members of the Federation, Jake announced. Full membership will be granted after a probationary period of 2 years. General Vextar's eyes filled with tears. You will not regret this decision. My people will prove worthy of your trust. The session continued with other business. Trade agreements between former enemies. Defense pacts between species that had never worked together before. Plans for exploring new regions of the galaxy as a united force. After the session ended, Lisa made her way down to the main floor. She found Jake talking quietly with several delegates. Admiral Brooks, he said when he saw her approaching. How did we do? Better than I expected, she said. A year ago, the Krillians were trying to wipe us out. Now they are our allies. It is hard to believe. People can change, Jake said. Even entire species can change if they are given the chance. Dr. Sam Morgan joined their conversation. He now served as the Federation's Chief Technology Officer, helping to share scientific advances between member worlds. The real test will come when we encounter the next crisis, he said. Will this alliance hold together when things get difficult? It will, said a familiar voice. They turned to see Commander Rick Stone approaching. He now led the Federation Intelligence Service, which included agents from many different worlds. You sound confident, Lisa said. I am, Rick replied. Do you know what the Zephyrians are calling us? They are calling us the Harmony Builders. They say humans have a gift for bringing different species together. What about the other old council species? Jake asked. The ones who have not joined the Federation yet? Most of them are watching and waiting, Rick said. They want to see if we can really make this work, but some are actively hostile. They want the old system back. Lisa nodded. She had expected this. Change was never easy, especially for those who had benefited from the old ways. There is something else, Rick continued. We have received a message from the Zephyrian Empire. They want to meet. Kexthara? Jake asked. Yes. She says she has an important proposal for the Federation. Lisa remembered the crystal being who had dismissed humanity so arrogantly just over a year ago. What kind of proposal? She would not say, but she wants to meet on neutral ground. She suggests the ruins of the old council chambers. Jake thought about this. Set up the meeting, but make sure we have security. This could be a trap. 3 days later, Jake and Lisa stood in the thieves. Ruins of the original council chamber. The room where humanity had been rejected and restricted was now empty and dark. Most of the equipment had been moved to the new Federation building. A ship appeared outside the station's windows. It was sleek and beautiful, made of the same crystal material as the Zephyrians themselves. Kexthara emerged from the ship alone. Walking slowly into the chamber, she looked different from the proud creature who had mocked humanity. Her crystal face seemed dimmer, and her movements were less confident. President Peterson, she said formally. Admiral Brooks, Thank you for meeting with me. What do you want, Kexdara? Jake asked directly. The crystal being was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke in a voice that was much softer than before. I want to apologize, she said. And I want to ask for forgiveness. Lisa was surprised. This was not what she had expected. Go on, Jake said. When you first came to this chamber, Kexthara said, I thought I knew everything about humans. I thought you were primitive, weak, unworthy of our attention. I was wrong. Yes, Jake said simply. You were. I have watched what you have built. This federation, this alliance of equals. It is something we never achieved in thousands of years. Of galactic civilization. Why are you telling us this? Lisa asked. Because the Zephyrian Empire is dying, Kexthara said. Our people are leaving us. They want to join your federation instead of serving our old empire. We are becoming irrelevant. Jake studied the crystal being carefully. And you want to stop that from happening? No, Kexthara said, surprising them both. I want to join them. She reached into her robes and pulled out a crystal tablet. This contains the location of every Zephyrian military base, every secret facility, every hidden weapon. I am offering to surrender the entire empire to the Federation. Lisa stared. At the tablet? The Zephyrian Empire controlled dozens of worlds and had one of the most advanced militaries in the galaxy. They were offering to give it all up. Why? Jake asked. Because you were right, Kexthara said. In this very chamber. You warned us that underestimating humanity was a mistake. You said that history would remember this moment. You were right about everything. She looked around the empty chamber. This room used to represent the height of galactic civilization. The most powerful species in the galaxy met here to decide the fate of lesser worlds. But it was built on a lie. What lie? Lisa asked. The lie that power means wisdom. The lie that age means superiority. The lie that might makes right. Kexthara's crystal face seemed to glow brighter. You humans proved all of that wrong. You showed us that real strength comes from bringing people together, not pushing them apart. Jake took the crystal tablet. If we accept this, what happens to you? I will face judgment for my crimes, Kexthara said. I was part of a system that oppressed billions of beings for thousands of years. But perhaps, in my final years, I can help build something better. Lisa looked at Jake. This was an incredible offer. With the Zephyrian surrender, the Federation would become the dominant power in the film.
Captain William Hayes stood at the viewport of the spaceship USS Determination. His old eyes looked out at the stars. At 68 years old, his body showed the marks of many wars fought across Earth and her colonies. His gray hair was cut, short in the military style he had kept for 50 years. The message from the Galactic Council had surprised him. Humans had asked to join the group of alien species for many years. They were always told no for one reason or another. The aliens thought humans were too violent, too unpredictable, or too young as a space-traveling species. But now everything had changed. A new enemy called the Kreslak Horde threatened the Council worlds. These insect-like aliens used strange, biological machines as weapons. They had destroyed many of the Council's advanced warships. The Council military leaders were young and had never fought in real wars. Their computer battle plans failed against an enemy that didn't follow the rules. Captain Hayes, the Council is waiting for you, said Lieutenant Susan Miller. She had worked with Hayes for 15 years. Her own hair was gray at the temples and small wrinkles showed at the corners of her eyes. Do you think they'll listen to us this time, Susan? Hayes asked. He adjusted his formal blue uniform, which still fit his tall frame perfectly. The medals on his chest caught the light from the stars. They're scared, sir, she replied. And scared people will try things they normally wouldn't. Hayes nodded. He knew fear made people do strange things. He had seen it in every war he had fought. The hallway to the council chamber was long and curved. The walls were made of a shining white material that was not quite metal and not quite stone. Hayes walked with his small group of human veterans. All of them were over 60 years old. Some used canes or had visible mechanical parts where limbs had been replaced after war injuries. The large doors to the council chamber opened without a sound. The room was huge, with seats rising up in a circle. Each seat held a different type of alien. Some had multiple arms or eyes. Others had skin that changed colors or bodies made mostly of gas held in special suits. High Chancellor Xylos sat in the center seat. The alien was tall and thin with skin that shimmered like an oil slick in water. Xylos looked down at the humans with large purple eyes that blinked sideways. "Humans," Xylos said, the translator making the alien's clicks and whistles into English. "We have studied your military history. We find your tendency toward violence disturbing, but we admit that this experience might be useful in our current problem." Hayes felt the other council members watching him. Some looked hopeful. Others seemed disgusted that humans were even allowed in their chamber. "With respect, Chancellor," Hayes said, stepping forward, "we don't just offer experience. We offer victory." A murmur went through the council. Some members buzzed or clicked in their own languages. "Bold words," said another council member, a round alien with green skin covered in what looked like tiny feathers. "The Kreslak have destroyed our best ships. Our most advanced weapons don't work against them. What can humans possibly do that we cannot?" Hayes smiled slightly. "Fight dirty." The council chamber grew silent. "Explain," Xylos demanded. "Your military forces are trained to fight according to protocols and simulations," Hayes said. "But real war isn't clean or predictable. The Kreslak use some kind of energy field that makes your fancy weapons useless. But humans have been fighting each other with simple weapons for thousands of years." Hayes pulled up a holographic display from a device on his wrist. It showed images of human tanks, artillery, and soldiers carrying rifles. "These are ancient by your standards," he continued. "But they fire physical bullets and shells. They don't need computers or energy fields, they just work." "And who would operate these machines?" asked a blue crystalline alien. "Your species is not numerous enough to provide the forces needed." Lieutenant Miller stepped forward. "We have millions of veterans with combat experience, people who fought in the Mars Rebellion, the Titan conflict, the asteroid belt wars. Most are retired now, but they know how to fight." "Old soldiers," the feathered alien said with something like disgust. "You want to send your elderly to fight our war?" "Old soldiers are the most dangerous kind," Hayes replied calmly. "Young soldiers think they're immortal. They make mistakes. Old soldiers know better. We've seen friends die. We've seen what war really costs. And we do what needs to be done anyway." Xylos studied Hayes for a long moment. "You yourself would fight?" "I would lead the first wave personally," Hayes said without hesitation. The council members spoke among themselves in hushed tones. After several minutes, Xylos raised a long, thin hand for silence. "The Kreslak fleet will reach the mining colony on Nexus 4 in 3 days, the Chancellor said. "If they take the planet, they gain access to resources that will make them even stronger. We have evacuated many civilians, but our military forces have been unable to stop the Kreslak advance. Give us permission to deploy, and we'll show you what humans can do," Hayes said. "Very well," Xylos decided. "But understand this. If you fail, the Council will never again consider Earth for membership, and the Kreslak will likely target your world next. We understand the stakes," Hayes replied. When the humans left the council chamber, Miller walked beside Hayes. "That went better than expected," she said quietly. "They're desperate," Hayes replied. "Now we need to prove we can back up our words." Back on the USS Determination, Hayes called a meeting with the other veterans who had made the journey. They gathered in the ship's conference room. Colonel Barbara Winters, 70 years old with silver hair and a burn scar along her neck, looked at the holographic map of Nexus 4. "Reminds me of the terrain in the Olympus Mons campaign," she said. "Similar." "Gravity, too," said Major Paul Garcia. His right arm was a military-grade prosthetic from an injury 30 years ago. About 80% of Earth normal. "We'll need to bring up the old equipment," Hayes said. The M1A5 tanks, the artillery, the projectile weapons. Everything we mothballed after the Treaty of Ceres. The Council is sending us their battle data, Miller reported, looking at her tablet. The Kreslak use some kind of quantum field that disrupts energy weapons and advanced targeting systems, but it has no effect on simple mechanical devices. Like a good old-fashioned rifle, Garcia said with a smile. Exactly, Hayes agreed. I want all our people ready to deploy in 48 hours. Council ships will transport us to Nexus 4. We'll coordinate with whatever Council forces remain there. What about medical support? Asked Dr. Ellen Rivera, a combat surgeon in her 60s. These old bodies don't recover like they used to. We're bringing the best field medics we have, Hayes assured her. And we're not planning to die out there. Just to win. As the others left to prepare, Miller stayed behind with Hayes. He stood again at the viewport, looking out at the alien space station that orbited a blue-green world, nothing like Earth. Think we can really do this, sir? Miller asked. Most of us haven't seen combat in years. Hayes turned to her, his face serious but confident. You don't forget how to fight, Susan. You just gain more reasons to make sure you win. As the USS Determination prepared for war, news spread through the human colonies. Retired soldiers everywhere began to dust off their uniforms and report for duty. The old warships that had been converted to cargo vessels were brought back to military service. The Galactic Council watched in confusion as humans embraced a war that wasn't truly theirs. What they didn't understand was that humans had always known they weren't alone in the universe, and they had always prepared for the day when they would need to prove their worth among the stars. Captain William Hayes had waited his whole life for this moment. One last battle. One chance to show the galaxy what human soldiers, even old ones, could do. The human military ship Remembrance became very busy as shuttles brought equipment and people from Earth. Colonel Diane Kelly watched as old tanks and big guns were loaded into the cargo areas. She was 71 years old with artificial knees and a spine fixed with metal. Her gray hair was cut short and her eyes missed nothing. The Council aliens are complaining about our equipment, ma'am, said Sergeant Frank Rogers. He was a big man whose beard was now completely white. Kelly laughed and touched the long gun barrel of an M1A5 tank. The design was over 100 years old, but this tank had been updated many times. Let them complain, she said. The Kreslak used some kind of special field that makes energy weapons and fancy drives useless. But good old bullets and shells, those still work just fine. Around the ship, retired soldiers checked equipment and practiced. Many were in their 60s and 70s. They moved more slowly than young soldiers, but they knew exactly what they were doing. Every movement was careful and precise, born from decades of practice. In the command center, Admiral Joseph Martinez looked at maps with the Council's military helper, a young alien named Zirith. The alien had 4 eyes and blue skin. You plan to use these old weapons? Zirith asked, not hiding his doubt. Martinez smiled. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Your fancy drones and energy guns got shut down by their tech. Our tanks, our artillery, our rifles, they'll keep firing until the last bullet is gone. Zirith blinked all 4 eyes in confusion. But your soldiers, they are all near the end of their lives. We're old, Martinez corrected, not useless. In another part of the ship, Major Alan Peters worked with his team to prepare their combat suits. The suits were not as advanced as the Council military's armor, but they had one big advantage. They worked without complex computers that the Kreslak could disable. Check the joint seals twice, Peters told his team. We don't know what kind of air is on Nexus or 4. Already done, sir, said Captain Lisa Wright, his second in command. She was 63 with streaks of gray in her dark hair. And I added extra padding where your back always bothers you. Peters smiled at her. They had served together for 30 years across 3 different wars. Always looking out for me. Someone has to, she replied. You'd fight in your underwear if that was all we had. In the medical bay, Dr. Ellen Rivera prepared her supplies. She had been a combat surgeon in the Mars Rebellion 40 years ago. Now her hands shook slightly, but her mind was as sharp as ever. We're bringing twice the usual blood and painkillers, she told her medical team. Old bodies don't bounce back like young ones. The council offered their medical tech, said a younger doctor. They have these healing pods that can fix almost anything. Rivera shook her head. Their tech needs power. What happens when the Kreslak shut it down? No, we do this the old-fashioned way. Bandages, stitches, splints, things that don't need computers to work. On the bridge, Captain Hayes received reports from all departments. Lieutenant Miller stood beside him with a tablet. All combat teams. Report ready, she said. Supply loading is at 87%. Medical is prepared for casualties. Hayes nodded. And the council forces? They're sending 12 ships with us. About 2,000 of their soldiers remain on Nexus 4, mostly, in defensive positions around the main mining facility. Not enough, Hayes said quietly. We knew that going in, Miller reminded him. Hayes looked at a picture of Nexus 4 on the main screen. It was mostly desert with some mountains and a few large lakes. The mining facility was in a valley surrounded by rocky hills. Have Colonel Kelly focus our landing here. Hayes pointed to an area about 10 miles from the main facility. The ridge line will give us cover to set up our artillery. The council commander wants us to land directly at the facility, Miller said. And put all our forces in one easy target? No thanks, Hayes replied. We do this our way or not at all. That evening, Hayes called a meeting with all the senior officers. They gathered in the ship's mess hall, which was the only room big enough for everyone. We reach Nexus 4 tomorrow, Hayes told them. The Kreslak forces have already landed on the South Continent and are moving toward the main mining facility. Council forces are holding them back, but they're losing ground. He showed a map of the planet and their planned landing zone. Our strategy is simple. We land here, establish a base, and hit the Kreslak from the side while the Council forces engage them from the front. Colonel Kelly's tank division will lead the assault. Major Peters and his infantry will provide support. What about air cover? Asked Colonel Barbara Winters. We're bringing 20 F-52 fighters, Hayes said. They're old, but they've been modified to work in Nexus scifi's atmosphere. The pilots are all veterans of the asteroid belt wars. And the Kreslak ships? Admiral Martinez asked. They're holding position on the far side of the planet, Hayes replied. They seem to prefer ground assaults for initial invasions. That gives us a chance to establish our position before they realize what we're doing. After the meeting, many of the officers stayed to talk. Some hadn't seen each other in years. They shared stories of old battles and remembered friends who were gone. From across the room, Hayes watched them. These were not perfect soldiers with perfect bodies. They had bad knees and artificial hips. Some had scars, missing limbs, or eyes replaced with basic implants. But they had something the Council forces lacked. They knew what real war felt like. Later that night, Hayes couldn't sleep. He went to the observation deck where he could see the Council ships flying alongside the Remembrance. Their ships were beautiful, with sleek designs that looked like they had been grown rather than built. He heard footsteps and turned to see Dr. Rivera approaching. Shouldn't you be resting, Doctor? He asked. I could ask you the same thing, Captain, she replied. Old soldiers need their sleep too. Too much on my mind. Rivera stood beside him looking at the stars. We're really doing this, aren't we? One last fight. Does it seem crazy to you? Hayes asked. All of us at our age? Completely crazy, she smiled. But I wouldn't miss it. The Council needs to learn that fancy weapons aren't what win wars. It's the people willing to stand their ground no matter what. Hayes nodded. Get some rest, Ellen. Tomorrow will be a long day. You too, William, she said before leaving. Hayes stayed a while longer, thinking about all the battles he had fought. He had hoped to end his life peacefully, maybe on a porch, somewhere watching the sunset. But fate had other plans. Tomorrow, old human soldiers would step onto an alien battlefield. They would show the Galactic Council what humans could do. Win or lose, it would be a fight the galaxy would remember. As he finally turned to go back to his quarters, Hayes allowed himself a small smile. He was ready. They all were. The Kreslak had no idea what was coming for them. The command shuttle touched down on Nexus 4, sending up clouds of red dust. Major Alan Peters watched through the small window as the landscape came into view. The planet had a sky that was more orange than blue, and 3 small moons could be seen even in daylight. Reminds me of Arizona, Peters said as the shuttle door opened with a hiss. The hot air rushed in, carrying the smell of metal and something like cinnamon. Peters stepped onto the alien soil, his combat boots leaving deep prints in the dust. At 64, his eyes weren't as good as they once were, though the special glasses he wore helped him see clearly. "Why is it always a desert?" he muttered, looking around at the barren landscape. Captain Lisa Wright stepped out behind him, her rifle ready. "Because sand gets everywhere and makes us miserable," she said with a small smile. The landing zone was filled with frightened council civilians and their military personnel. Most of the civilians had blue or green skin and extra limbs. They stared at the humans with wide eyes. A council military commander approached Peters. He was young by human standards, with a tall head crest that moved as he spoke. "You are the human reinforcements?" the alien asked, his translator making his speech sound slightly flat. Peters stood straight, ignoring the familiar pain in his back. "3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, retired but called back to duty. We hear you have a bug problem." The council commander looked past Peters at the human soldiers coming off the shuttles. Men and women in their 60s and 70s moved with slow but steady purpose, setting up equipment and forming defensive lines. "These are elders," the commander said. "We requested warriors." Wright stepped forward, the medals on her chest catching the sunlight. "With respect, we've fought in more wars than your entire species has seen in the last 1,000 years. Age brings experience, and experience keeps you alive." Just then, a distant boom echoed across the desert. The ground shook slightly. The council, soldiers looked scared, but the human veterans just turned toward the sound as if measuring it. "Kreslak artillery," Peters said calmly. "About 15 miles away, based on the sound delay. They're using standard bombardment to weaken defenses." "How do you know this?" the council commander asked. "Been under fire more times than I can count," Peters replied. "You learn to tell the difference between weapons by their sound." More human shuttles landed, bringing tanks, artillery, and other equipment. Colonel Diane Kelly directed the unloading, her voice sharp and clear through the dust. "Get those tanks behind the ridgeline. Artillery units set up on the high ground. I want a defensive perimeter in 30 minutes. The human soldiers moved with practiced efficiency. Despite their age, they knew exactly what to do. Young council soldiers watched in confusion as the humans dug trenches and foxholes instead of setting up energy shields. A council officer approached Kelly. "Your soldiers dig in the dirt? We have portable force field generators." Kelly smiled slightly. "Force fields can be disrupted. A good hole in the ground never fails." By midday, the human base was taking shape. Peters and Wright walked the perimeter, checking positions and talking with the soldiers. "Position secure, sir," said Sergeant Greg Wilson, a man with a mechanical leg and a thick gray mustache. "We've got clear lines of fire in all directions." "Good work," Peters said. "Any sign of Kreslak scouts?" "Nothing yet. They're still focused on the mining facility to the east." In the command tent, Captain Hayes studied the maps with Admiral Martinez and the council commanders. The council aliens used holographic displays that showed the movement of Kreslak forces in real time. "They're advancing in 3 columns toward the mining facility," a council officer explained. "Our forces are holding the main entrance, but we cannot stop their advance forever." Hayes nodded, his eyes narrowed in thought. "They don't know we're here yet. That gives us an advantage." He pointed to a spot on the map. "We need to hit them from this ridgeline, draw their attention away from the facility. That would place your forces directly in their path," the council commander objected. "Exactly," Martinez said. "That's the point." The council aliens looked at each other in confusion. Their military training told them to avoid direct confrontation when outnumbered. "You would sacrifice your soldiers?" asked one alien with 4 arms. "We're not planning to be sacrificed," Hayes replied firmly. "We're planning to fight. There's a difference." As evening approached, Peters stood on a small hill overlooking the human camp. The sun was setting, turning the sky deep red. In the distance, the lights of the mining facility could be seen, along with occasional flashes from weapons fire. Wright joined him, bringing 2 cups of coffee. "Command says the Kreslak will reach our position by morning," she said, handing him a cup. Peters took a sip of the hot coffee. "Good, I hate waiting." "The council soldiers think we're crazy," Wright said. "They keep asking why we would volunteer for this mission at our age. What did you tell them?" "That old soldiers are the best kind. We know what matters." Peters nodded. Below them, human soldiers were gathering in small groups around portable heaters. Some played cards, others cleaned their weapons. A few simply sat quietly, lost in their own thoughts. "Remember the night before the Olympus Mons drop?" Peters asked suddenly. Wright smiled. "How could I forget? You gave that speech about Mars belonging to all humans, not just the corporations. I was young and full of big ideas then. And now?" Peters looked at the alien sky with its 3 small moons. "Now I just want to make sure these council species understand that humanity has earned its place out here among the stars." In the medical tent, Dr. Ellen Rivera finished organizing her supplies. Field beds were set up in neat rows, ready for the wounded they all knew would come. Her young assistant, a council doctor with purple skin, watched with interest. "Your medical technology is so simple," the alien said. "Simple but reliable," Rivera replied. "I've performed surgery during artillery bombardments with nothing but basic tools and steady hands." "Our doctors never go near the battlefield," the alien admitted. "Different approach," Rivera said kindly. "Not necessarily better or worse, just different." Night fell fully, bringing with it a chill that made the desert seem even more alien. In the command tent, Hayes received the latest reports from Earth. "More veterans are volunteering," Lieutenant Miller told him. "Ships are being loaded as we speak. They could be here in 3 days if we need reinforcements." Hayes nodded, touched by the response. "Let's hope we're still here in 3 days." Outside, the human soldiers prepared for battle in their own ways. Some slept, knowing they needed rest. Others wrote letters to loved ones. Many just sat together, sharing stories of past wars and fallen friends. In his tent, Peters looked at an old photo of his family, his wife, children, and grandchildren, back on Earth. He tucked it carefully into his chest pocket, close to his heart. "One more battle," he whispered to himself. "Just one more." As dawn approached, the first scouts reported Kreslak movements near their position. The insect-like aliens were moving faster than expected, their strange biological machines making odd clicking sounds in the pre-dawn darkness. The old human soldiers took their positions, weapons ready. They had fought on Earth, on Mars, in the asteroid belt, and on distant moons. Now they would fight on yet another world, showing the galaxy what human veterans could do. The battle for Nexus 4 was about to begin. The first light of dawn revealed the Kreslak forces moving across the dusty plain. General Patricia Clark watched through binoculars as the enemy advanced. At 73, she was the oldest field commander in the human forces. Her white hair was cut short, and a long scar ran down the side of her face from a battle long ago. "They're coming in a standard phalanx formation," reported Colonel Gary Edwards, her tactical officer. His hands, spotted with age, held a tablet showing the enemy movements. "No changes despite the rough ground. They're used to winning with numbers, not smart tactics." Clark nodded. "They've never needed to adapt. Today they'll learn." Around them, human veterans had turned the ridge into a fortress during the night. Foxholes and trenches zigzagged across the landscape. Artillery pieces were hidden behind rocks and in small caves. Snipers lay in position, their rifles steady despite their aging hands. In the command bunker, council representatives watched, with confusion. The aliens had shimmering skin and 4 eyes that blinked sideways. "Your soldiers hide in the ground?" asked Talia, a female alien tactical advisor. "Our forces use gravity shields and force bubbles for protection." "Which the Kreslak can shut down," Edwards replied. "A good hole in the ground always works." Clark studied the approaching enemy. The Kreslak looked like a mix between insects and machines. They had 6 legs and hard outer shells. Some carried weapons that glowed with strange energy. Others had weapons built into their bodies, Range to target? Clark asked. 5 miles in closing, a soldier reported. Clark nodded and spoke into her radio. All artillery units, prepare to fire. Tanks, hold position behind the ridge. Wait for my command. The human soldiers checked their weapons one last time. In a forward position, Major Peters and Captain Wright crouched in a reinforced bunker with a clear view of the approaching enemy. Just like old times, Wright said, adjusting her rifle. Peters smiled slightly. Except my knees hurt more now. The Kreslak forces moved closer, seemingly unaware of the trap they were walking into. Their insect-like bodies created a strange, clicking sound as they moved across the rocky ground. In her command position, Clark watched them enter the kill zone. She picked up her radio. All artillery units, fire! The first volley of human artillery fire erupted from hidden positions along the ridge. The shells arced high into the orange sky before raining down on the Kreslak formation. Explosions tore through their ranks, sending bodies and machine parts flying. The council representatives gasped as they watched on their screens. Simple kinetic weapons, Clark explained calmly. Sometimes the oldest solutions work best. The Kreslak forces quickly regrouped and charged toward the human positions. As they got closer, the human tanks emerged from behind the ridge, their main guns firing. Each shot found its target, as the tank crews had spent decades perfecting their aim. Private Henry Jackson sat at a heavy machine gun, his arthritis-curved fingers steady on the trigger. At 65, his eyes weren't as sharp as they once were, but he could still hit what he aimed at. Beside him, Corporal Nancy Rivera fed ammunition belts into the gun. Just like the Battle of Olympus Mons, Jackson said over the roar of gunfire. Rivera nodded, except those enemies couldn't spit acid. The Kreslak forces split into smaller groups trying to flank the human positions. Some carried strange devices that shot globs of burning liquid. Others used sonic weapons that made the ground shake. Colonel, Kelly's voice came over the radio. They're trying to circle around our left flank. Tank units 3 and 4 repositioned to Sector 7. The human M1A5 tanks, their designs over a century old but still deadly, moved with surprising speed. They cut off the Kreslak attempt to flank the human forces. In the medical tent behind the lines, Dr. Rivera prepared for casualties. The first wounded soldiers arrived, carried by their comrades. She worked quickly, her old hands still skilled, at stopping bleeding and removing shrapnel. "More coming in," shouted a medic. Rivera looked up from the soldier she was treating. "Set up more beds. We're going to need them." Back on the front line, the battle grew more intense. The Kreslak forces pushed forward despite heavy losses. Their strange bodies could take incredible damage before falling. "They keep coming," Wright said, reloading her rifle. "Don't they know when to retreat?" "They've never lost before," Peters replied. "They don't know how." A massive explosion rocked the human left flank as Kreslak forces broke through a section of the line. Clark immediately redirected forces to seal the breach. "Second platoon, move to Sector 5, she ordered. "Artillery, concentrate fire on these coordinates." The human veterans responded quickly, showing the discipline that came from decades of combat experience. Soldiers in their 60s and 70s moved between positions, laying down covering. Fire for each other. Sergeant Frank Rogers led a squad to reinforce the broken line. His white beard was now streaked with dust and blood from a cut on his forehead. "Hold this position," he shouted to his soldiers. "Don't let them through." The fighting continued for hours. Human casualties mounted as the Kreslak pressed their attack. But the veterans held firm, their positions well prepared and their tactics sound. In the command bunker, the council representatives watched in amazement as the human forces stopped what had seemed like an unstoppable enemy. "How are they doing this?" Talia asked, her 4 eyes wide with surprise. "The Kreslak have superior numbers and technology." Hayes, who had joined Clark in the command center, smiled grimly. "Because we've seen worse. Every human soldier out there has faced death before and kept fighting anyway." As the day wore on, the Kreslak attacks began to lose strength. Their formations became less organized, their tactics more desperate. For the first time, they seemed unsure. "They're adapting," Edwards observed. "Learning that their usual approach isn't working." Too late for them, Clark replied. We've got them figured out now. At sunset, the Kreslak forces suddenly pulled back, retreating across the dusty plain. The human soldiers watched carefully, not celebrating yet. Are they giving up? A council officer asked hopefully. No, Hayes said, studying the enemy movements. They're regrouping, probably calling for reinforcements. This battle isn't over. As darkness fell, the human forces used the lull to reinforce their positions, treat their wounded, and prepare for the next attack. In the medical tent, Dr. Rivera worked tirelessly, saving those she could. Peters and Wright walked the line, checking on their soldiers. Despite their age, the veterans showed remarkable endurance. We lost 17 today, Wright reported quietly. Another 43 wounded. Peters nodded solemnly. Better than I expected against an enemy like this. In the distance, they could see the lights of Kreslak forces gathering. Tomorrow would bring another battle, perhaps even harder than today's. Get some rest, Peters told his soldiers. Tomorrow we finish this. As the 3 moons of Nexus 4 rose in the alien sky, the old, human soldiers prepared for another day of war. They had survived the first test. The Kreslak had learned that humans, even old ones, were not easy to defeat. And somewhere in space, the council representatives were sending urgent messages. The humans are holding. The impossible is happening. Old human soldiers have stepped onto the battlefield, and the Kreslak are retreating. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council began 3 days after the Battle of Nexus Ridge. The large round chamber was quiet, as videos of the battle played on the main screen. Normally, the council members would talk during presentations, making small deals and having side conversations. Today they sat in complete silence. The video showed human veterans fighting against overwhelming Kreslak forces. It showed Major Peters, blood running down his face from a head wound, leading a group of soldiers in a counterattack that broke the enemy's advance. It showed Colonel Kelly directing tank movements despite her position being hit by enemy fire. It showed Dr. Rivera performing surgery in a half-collapsed medical tent. When the recording ended, no one spoke for several long moments. High Chancellor Xylos finally broke the silence. We have asked the human representatives to join us. The doors opened and Admiral Martinez entered with Colonel Kelly. Martinez wore a clean dress uniform, though his right arm was in a sling. Kelly walked with a slight limp, leaning on a cane, her face showing fresh cuts that were still healing. The Kreslak have completely withdrawn from Nexus 4, Martinez reported, his voice strong despite his injuries. Their remaining ships have pulled back to the outer part of the system. Our intelligence suggests they are reconsidering their plans to invade Council space. A Regalian Council member with green skin and 3 eyes leaned forward. How? How did your old warriors defeat an enemy our best military units could not stop? Kelly stepped forward. The Kreslak relied too much on their advanced technology. They used energy fields to shut down your fancy weapons and computer systems. But humanity has been fighting wars since we first stood upright. We know that when technology fails, you go back to basics. And your soldiers, Xylos said, long fingers. Pressed together, they fought with such determination despite their age. Martinez smiled slightly. Perhaps because of their age. Young soldiers fight because they're trained to, because they think they can't be hurt. Old soldiers fight because they know exactly what's at stake. Because they've seen friends die, because they understand that sometimes winning requires sacrifice. The council chamber filled with voices as the members discussed among themselves. After several minutes, Xylos raised a hand for silence. Humanity's request to join the Galactic Council has been reconsidered, the Chancellor announced. It seems we have much to learn from your species. Back on the human ship Remembrance, Captain William Hayes received the message from Martinez. He sat in his chair, feeling every one of his 68 years. The battle had been hard. They had lost 43 soldiers with over 100 wounded, but they had won. Lieutenant Susan Miller brought him a cup of coffee. News from the council, sir? Hayes nodded. We're in. It seems all it took was showing them that wisdom comes with age, and sometimes so does victory. Miller smiled. What happens now, sir? Hayes looked out at the stars. Now we teach them how to maintain peace, because old soldiers know better than anyone the real cost of war. The next day, a ceremony was held on Nexus 4. Council representatives and human soldiers gathered on the battlefield where they had fought together. A simple stone monument was placed to honor those who had died. Major Peters stood with Captain Wright, both in dress uniforms, as the names of the fallen were read. 43 names, Wright said quietly. 43 friends. Peters nodded. They knew what they were signing up for. They died for something that mattered. Across the gathering, Dr. Rivera talked with council medical staff. They were eager to learn her primitive techniques that had saved so many lives when their advanced medical pods had failed. Sometimes the old ways work best, she told them. Human hands can adapt when machines can't. The council had already begun sending engineers to study the human weapons and equipment. They were amazed by how simple mechanical devices had defeated the Kreslak's sophisticated technology. Colonel Kelly watched with amusement as alien engineers examined an old M1A5 tank with wonder. They act like it's magic, she said to Colonel Edwards. It's just a gun on tracks. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the hardest to see, Edwards replied. High Chancellor Xylos approached Captain Hayes, who stood a little apart from the others. Captain, the alien said, I must admit that I did not believe your species was ready to join the council. I thought humans were too violent, too unpredictable. Hayes looked at the alien calmly. We are those things. We've fought terrible wars among ourselves, but we've learned from them. That's the difference. What do you mean? Xylos asked. Your species has been at peace so long you forgot how to fight, Hayes explained. Humanity remembers its wars. We carry those lessons with us. That's why we can have peace without being weak. News of the human victory spread quickly through the galaxy. On Earth and her colonies, people celebrated. The veterans who had fought on Nexus 4 were called heroes, but the old soldiers themselves didn't feel like heroes. They had simply done what needed to be done, as they had always done. 2 weeks later, the first official human delegation arrived at the Galactic Council headquarters. Young diplomats and scientists full of energy and new ideas, eager to join the interstellar community. Hayes watched them from the observation deck of the Remembrance. Miller stood beside him. They look so young, Hayes said. They are young, Miller replied. But they'll do well. We've made a place for them. That's what old soldiers do, isn't it? Fight the battles so the young ones don't have to. On Earth, recruitment centers reported a strange trend. Young people were signing up for military service in record numbers, but they weren't talking about glory or adventure. They spoke about responsibility and protection. They wanted to learn from the old veterans before those veterans were gone. The Kreslak never returned to council space. Reports suggested they had found easier targets in another part of the galaxy. The council began building a new military force, one that combined their advanced technology with the battle-tested methods of humanity. And on a small hill overlooking the battlefield of Nexus Ridge, a simple stone monument stood. It carried the names of the 43 human veterans who had died there, along with a single sentence. Here, old human soldiers showed the galaxy that wisdom, courage, and sacrifice know no age. Captain Hayes visited the monument one last time before the Remembrance departed for Earth. He placed his hand on the warm stone and stood silently for a long moment. As he turned to leave, he noticed a group of young council cadets watching him, with respect in their alien eyes. They straightened when he looked at them, almost standing at attention. Hayes smiled. Perhaps this was the greatest victory of all, not just winning a battle, but teaching others what it truly meant to be a soldier. Not just fighting, but knowing why you fight and when to stop. The old human soldiers had stepped onto the battlefield, and the Galactic Council had indeed watched in awe. But more importantly, they had learned. As the Remembrance broke orbit and set course for Earth, Hayes took one last look at Nexus 4. One last battle, he whispered to himself. One that mattered.